Hello everyone, and welcome to Lecture 11 in our ongoing series on Middle Egyptian and hieroglyphics. Today we'll be going over some example problems from chapters 5 and 6. Thank you again everyone for watching. Even though these videos are objectively bad, I have no idea why people keep watching them, but I do genuinely appreciate it, and the fact that people occasionally watch them is the reason that I keep making them. Today we are reprising what we did in Lecture 8. We are going to go over some of the homework problems that have the answers given from chapters 5 and 6, and use that as a way to go over the new concepts that we've covered in the last couple of lectures in some detail, and kind of incidentally review some of the other things we've gone over as well, almost as a matter of course. The first one we're going to take a look at is 5.1, question 1 in chapter 5. So the way we're going to go through this, I changed up the order a little because it works a little better with these as the sentence structure gets more complicated, to write out the transcriptions first and then try and parse the parts of speech. So what we have here is you khertu nebet net erper. That is one word. That's why there's the hyphen. Pen set iri wedge and chemneter sipet set. Be careful here with the transcription, especially that waj has a very weird writing. You would expect it to be with the W first, if that's, the phonetic guide, but it's written second, just in this word as a matter of convention. It's always the wedge sign and then the W. And also note the honorific transposition with chemneter. The word neter, meaning God, is written first because the God is more important than the servant of the God, the chemneter. But the chem is to be pronounced first. So let's try and assign parts of speech to these. Now we know that to be our particle. Cheret is a noun. It means items, possessions, things is perfectly fine as a translation as well. It's got a plural on it. Nebet, the fact that nebet has a T means it can't be, or at least is very unlikely to be, our noun. Neb, Lord. You do get nebet, lady, occasionally, but when you see nebet, especially next to a feminine noun like khertu, you can always assume that it is an adjective modifying it. Net, that means of, that's our genitival preposition. It's the feminine one, which again matches with our feminine noun. Erper, that's a noun, it means temple. It's a little idiomatic. You just kind of have to memorize that one because it looks like it could be like to the house or something, but it means temple, literally house of the mouth. Pen, this. Set, in place. Iri is an adjective. It has a few meanings. I believe we went over in a previous one, but it roughly means its or theirs. Waj is our verb, although a little more on that. Waj does act as a verb in this one, yes. N is our marker of the past tense when it follows a verb. Chemneter is, of course, a noun. Sipet, so this one's interesting. Sip is a grammatical root, or a grammatical verb. It means to count. But in the way it's positioned in the sentence, and the fact that it's followed by a dependent pronoun, means that it cannot possibly be grammatically a verb. It has to be a noun. More on that in a moment. You'll excuse that the end of pronoun got cut off by the background. But again, you is a particle, khertu a plural noun, nebet an adjective, net is of, it's our genitival, erper is a noun, pen a demonstrative, this. M is a preposition, set is a noun, iri an adjective, waj a verb, n is a particle, modifying the verb, chemneter a noun, Sipet acting as a noun, and set our pronoun. And now we can translate them now that we know where they go in the sentence. Chertu is roughly things. Probably choose a slightly different translation for that, but things works here. Nebet means all. So put together, that's pretty simple. All the things, or all of the things, both fine. Net is our possessive, so it's the things of something, specifically of the temple, the air pair, the house of the mouth, and this temple, because of our demonstrative. And that's our subject in a non-verbal sentence. Remember, the non-verbal sentence is made up of three basic parts. You have your particle, you or mech, in this case you. You have your subject, along with any associated adjectives. And there's quite a long adjectival phrase modifying our noun. Everything from chertu to pen is grammatically a single unit. The remaining circumstance, the remaining adverbial clause, it starts with, pretty typically, it starts with a pronoun acting as an adjective, or not, prepositional phrase acting as an adjective, set iri, in their place. Okay, so that's fine. So far, all of the things of this temple were in their place. It could be are in their place at this point, but as we're about to see, were is more correct because this is taking place in the past. Then we have a circumstantial clause, which continues the adverbial comment on our noun. This is still about the things. Waj and chemnecher sipet set. Waj and commanded, the past tense, which again is why it's kind of more correct to put the first part in the past tense as well. Just makes more logical sense with what's being said. Chemnecher, the priest, so the priest commanded. Sipet set. Sipet is the infinitive of the noun seep. Now, seep does not have a weak consonant. Ordinarily, you would only expect a T to come at the end of a weak consonant, but, as I mentioned before, biconsonantal verbs, like eep, that then take an S at the beginning to become the causal form, seep, take a T at the end on the infinitive, seepet. These are kind of exceptional cases. If you see something like this, if you see a verb with a T at the end and you don't expect it, look it up, see if it's an S causative. Dictionaries will tell you, oh, this is S-jed, it's the S causative of jed. And so that will always be available to help you. It's not something you have to memorize a list of. You'll get a sense for it eventually. And then finally, we have set. Set is acting as the logical subject of our infinitive. Remember that because this is a genitival relationship, we have to use a dependent pronoun because it's not, rather than the pure suffix pronoun that we would normally expect with a verb when it's acting as the subject, just because of the different nature of the relationship between them. So we have sipet set, the inspection of them. When the priest commanded their inspection, in this case, set there is referring all the way back to the beginning to things. So then the completed sentence is, all of the things of this temple were in their proper places when the priest ordered their inspection. That proper places is an idiom. Set iri is proper places. The book goes into a little bit on that actually briefly when it talks about the usage of iri. This is a reasonably common idiom that you'll see. Now we're off to our next sentence. This is the second and final one from chapter 5. I decided to do 2 per chapter to not belabor anything too much, but to, I think, get a pretty reasonable sample. I like this one. I find it rather interesting in the grammatical structure, especially there at the beginning. And I think it's a good example to have. So first of all, our transcription. Yud, Jed, Nef, Nef, Set, Em, Chet, Chem, Set, Her, Set, F, A. There's no error there. Nef, it does happen twice, and is followed by a set, and it is perfectly grammatically correct. This is exactly as Hoch put it, and it is right. Let's analyze what's happening then with the parts of speech. So, Jed is, of course, our main verb. That's pretty clear. Our main verb is followed by an N, so it's in the past tense. So it becomes Jeden, past tense of Jed, and our subject then follows the suffix pronoun F. Jed means to speak, so it becomes he said. Then you have another NF. And here we have the other main role of the preposition N, which is as a dative. The dative being to or for. You speak to someone much more often than you speak for them, so you can take that translation. He said to him. There's one more preposition here, set. Set means, technically it's a third plural, but in this case we can pretty safely take it as it, because in English, even when you say multiple things, you always just say it. So that's the translation that we would take. So it becomes he said it to him. That's the full breakdown of all that. Now we'll just quickly go through the parts of speech the rest and put that up before we get the meaning of the rest of it. M is a preposition. Chet, I believe actually in this case I cannot recall whether it is acting as a verb or a noun. Yes, it is a noun here. Okay, good. Chemset is a noun. This is an infinitive with a third week. Cher is a preposition. Set is a noun. We saw it in the previous sentence. It means place. It has a suffix pronoun F, and it has the adjective a. All right, well, let's get the meaning of all the words. Oh, yes, I got this wrong. My apologies on this. I forgot to edit it out. But I will clarify this because this is an easy mistake to make, and I kind of like to keep those up some of the time when I make mistakes myself that I expect you will also make. So, emchet is a compound preposition. Chet is also a noun. It can mean stick or thing or fire. And this is the same writing as there is for stick, except for those legs. That's why I questioned myself if it was a verb earlier. This is the process, and I want to show it to you in full. Emchet means after. And it's composed of the preposition em and the word chet, and it becomes its own complete preposition. Chemset is the infinitive of chemsi. This one is a more typical T-ending infinitive. You have a verb with a third week consonant. It has an I in the final position, or sorry, a fourth week consonant has an I in the final position, which means that it has to take a T ending when it goes in the infinitive. So it's pretty obvious what's going on here. It is the nominal form, the infinitive. Cher means upon. Set is the throne. It's specifically with the F, it's his throne. Is an adjective that means great. So then the meaning of this is pretty clear once we got through that difficult first section, and remember that emchet was a preposition. He said it to him after emchet. Emchet is a preposition that is governing our infinitive. So it becomes after sitting. Cher setef upon his great throne. Context would determine whether he sat down on the throne, got up, and then said something, or if he sat down, got all good and settled, and then gave his speech. And also, I bet you anything that he is the king here. On to the next one, on to chapter 6. 6, number 4. I believe number 2 was the first one they gave, but it was substantially too long. There are formatting limits because of how I'm doing this, with how long of a sentence I can pick, so I tend to go with the shorter ones. So first, our transcription. Mech, su, cher, meret, and sa'at. Satcha. That one's a little tough to pronounce. Sa'atech, perhaps is better. The T followed by the chadi is non-trivial. Mech, you may not remember this, but this is an alternate form of mech, the preposition for look. Specifically, is the plural version. Or it's actually, no, I believe it's just the feminine. 1 minute. you can see how uncommon this is that it doesn't come to mind immediately. No, this is the feminine singular. Mechen is the plural. So mech, su, which is our preposition or our pronoun, our the subject. Her is a preposition. Medet is a verb, but it is a verb that we are finding in the position after a preposition, so we know it must actually be a noun, the infinitive form, because you can't have a verb follow a preposition. Prepositions can only be followed by nouns or pronouns. En, just a preposition here. And then sat is a noun with a pronominal suffix. Pronoun, not preposition, but small matter. Satech, your daughter. Again, let's try and tease out the meaning. So, mech is look, but you're saying to a woman instead of a man to whom you would say mek. Su, he, her, medet. Remember, her means upon, but when dealing with a infinitive, you have to change it to, in English you would use is or am or whatever, a form of to be. Because it changes it into the progressive form, the present perfect. And then en satech, pretty obviously, to your daughter. So it just becomes, look, he is talking to your daughter. And finally, we're going to go with chapter 6, number 7. This is, well, not exactly. I know that similar inscriptions, similar ideas appear in the annals of King Thutmose III, so this is probably inspired by that. Although we are not quite at the point where we could translate something like that, we're still building up to the point of reading real inscriptions. So first, the transcriptions. Sema, that second word might be a little confusing. There's a lot going on there, but if you just look at the first two parts, you will recognize the upright S and the sickle for ma, and the rest of that is determinatives and then NF. Ma'u, that one's pretty easy to get the phonetics of, just the number 7. Setet, again, so first of all, the software I used made it hard to render this as the book did. The idea is that the oxide with the arrow through it is above both of the T's. I don't know if this captured this quite precisely, but the transcription for that is setet. Then the arrow and the hand with the flail are determinatives of that. Kem, en, at. Which is, by the way, another idiom that we're going to go over. Well, I'm sorry, it appears that we have the whole thing here. I'll reveal the answer to you and then go over all of it. So, first we have our particle followed by the main verb, sema, which means to slay. It's in the past tense because of the n. Its subject is a suffix pronoun that follows immediately after. Then we have another noun, the object, which makes sense. The verb for slaying logically requires an object, and that object is ma'u, lions. We know it's plural, it has that W ending, and furthermore, the number 7 is after it. It's hard to have 7 of something and have that thing be in the singular. So 7 is a number, it's the adjective modifying lions, so he slew 7 lions. Setet. That is, M in this case is really more of a by than an in, although in is the most common translation, but you should kind of take it more as by means of. And setet is a noun, you can see, because it comes after a preposition, so it must be infinitive, it must be a noun. And then we have this idiom, kem, en, at. It's kind of a strange one. Grammatically, kem here you can take like, it's almost like in the moment of an instant or in the time of an instant. Kem I have as an adjective because it sometimes means black. I think here it's better parsed as a noun. But it's not something that you really need to know how to parse grammatically because it's an idiom. It just means in the blink of an eye. Oh, that is my cat. My apologies. So this one, pretty simple. He slew 7 lions by shooting, perhaps by shooting them, we'd need to fill in English, but Egyptian is fine without it, in the blink of an eye. All right, and that's everything for this one. I went over these a little faster than I did in the previous one because I expect people will understand more of the basics. I went through the first one in some detail at the very least. I hope you're all able to get something out of this, and thank you for watching. Next time we will be dealing with a new verb form, the perspective, which is quite fun and quite difficult.